Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I had Ruth Alexander. She's a realtor. She's a certified luxury home marketing specialist out in Calgary, and she's got a killer social media presence. So she talks about real estate in Calgary, what made her get into real estate, her journey, and then why you should be investing there too. We talk a little bit about the advertising push that Alberta is calling. It's an advertising campaign that's happening right now in Toronto. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Grab a seat and grab a tea, and we'll catch you on the next one. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Spilling the Tea, brought to you by Pekoe Mortgages. This is a podcast where we look to interview movers, shakers, hustlers, people that are inspiring, have inspiring stories, and help to push the envelope on what's possible. I am your host, Daniel Johannes, and I'm a mortgage broker, but I'm also a business owner. I've created multiple startups, including a graffiti removal business. I've done loose leaf tea, I've done kombucha, juice bars, you name it. So I've got some experience in this, and I'm looking forward to these conversations that I have. If you like it, please comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Hope you enjoy it. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Dan with Spilling the Tea, a Pekoe podcast, and today I am joined by Ruth Alexander. Ruth is a certified luxury home marketing specialist. She's a top producing realtor with Colwell Banker Mountain Central and a social media strategist whose passion for real estate is contagious. So Ruth also runs the Rare Group. So she's the founder of the Rare Group. It's a dynamic group of creative entrepreneurs who believe in premium client service, extensive and creative marketing, and a dedication to results. And she's been consistently ranked as a top performing social media realtor. It's actually one of the reasons I have her on today is because I found her. So thank you, Ruth, for joining me on the podcast.
Wow, thank you very much. Yeah, I couldn't have, expressed or talked about myself better. So I think you've got it. You got it down pat.
Right on. You got to love the internet, right? You can find out as much as you want about sometimes it's not a good thing, but for the most part. And that's what really kind of intrigued me is social media is such a powerful tool these days. And I had seen that, I think it was Property Spark or one of those websites had listed you literally the number one influencer in Calgary, or maybe it's Alberta, but that kind of piqued my interest because a lot of my friends and family and folks that we work with have really started to take a little bit of notice to what's going on out west, and maybe it's time they pick up and move. So maybe we can start off, Ruth, with your journey, how you got into real estate. So tell me, like, when did you get into real estate, and how did you get into it?
Well, it's really interesting because, my whole life I've been very social and organizing events and, maybe even been a little bit of a bossy child. Anytime we'd go to a restaurant and something wasn't quite right, even when I was maybe about 12 or 13 years old, my mom would be like, Ruth, can you handle this? Go to the manager. I'd be like, yeah, things aren't right. So I've always been a little bit of a pain in the ass. And I think my friends and family always said, well, my grandmother thought I'd be a wonderful tour guide in Disney World because again, everyone would just naturally ask me where to go and how to get there. And I'm still quite good at that, whether you like that advice or solicit it from me or not. And and then, I remember someone saying that to me at a time when I wasn't working at all. I was, probably living a really great life in a luxury home with my family, and I was a stay-at-home mom for the first time in my life for about 10 years. And someone said to me even then, you should be a realtor, like um, you're so good at organizing events and matching people to each other, and you probably could extend that skill to homes. And I was kind of cheeky at the time, thinking, oh yeah, like headshots. I'm cute enough. I could be a great realtor. That was just such a dumb statement I made back in the day that I always remember. It's one of those things you say and you think I'm going to regret saying that, and I do. Um, so, interestingly enough, and maybe karma's a real bitch because years later, when I ended up in a really bad situation from, unforeseen events, a divorce, and, that's a story I think a lot of women, a lot of men and women have, like things don't work out. There was a house of cards there, long story short. Ended up, suddenly no car, the credit cards wouldn't work. I had two kids,
Hmm.
two young kids, and I hadn't worked for about 10 years. And so we ended up, my kids and I, living in a basement of a friend's house. I was 46 at the time. I had no prospects in terms of a job, and I had a few properties that we had that we were in the process of losing. So I knew I had to rent those out in order to pay my, get groceries on the table. So from there, I heard about VRBO, and I knew in order to get money on, money to pay for groceries at that particular time in my life, I had to rent those places out while I still had them. And so I took a keen interest way back then, to social media, because it was just pretty new at the time. And so, having been on it as, sort of a trophy wife, and all my travels and all these fundraisers, I had built up quite a following over sort of, senseless, meaningless, but kind of fun content. So I was already kind of rolling on the Instagram side of things. Um, but in order to get renters, my mindset became, well, I've heard of this LinkedIn. So I think, I have to go on LinkedIn, because those are all people with jobs who probably can afford to rent out my vacation properties that we're about to lose. But while we still have them, that's how I got really good at, articulating properties to get some bites. And meanwhile, I had a lot of realtor friends, and so I went to them to get, these small little contracts to do their social media, to help again put food on the table for my kids. So back then, no one knew how to use social media. So when I offered to do it for them, and for pittance, really, they said, "Oh, go ahead, because we're not doing it. We have no clue what we're doing." So I said, "No, I can do it. I'm pretty good at it. I know how to screenshot. And that then I learned the lingo. It was not on purpose that I got into real estate. It just was a means to keep us afloat while I was trying to get a job. And trust me, no one would hire me. I'd been unemployed for 10 years. So I just decided on my last credit limit, with help of, from my mom, I got my real estate license while doing all these other little social media jobs. So that's how I became a realtor, was just by accident. Um, and yeah, there you
But some of the times I've noticed in my life, the most growth that I have is through kind of having my back up against the wall, right? And it sounds like you had a lot of challenges that kind of hit you all at once, and
go.
it
Totally.
was one of those things where you had to figure out a way to survive. And good for you. I mean, clearly it's a testament to your resolve and being able to build up such a fantastic team and a social media following. And it's there's nothing wrong with having growing an audience and then asking that audience to come along with you on another journey, right? So you pivot a little bit, and it clearly they've been supporting you. So getting into VRBO in Toronto, I was one of those super hosts back in the day too, and I had a few places under my belt that I was Airbnb out, and it was great. And it was a good way to meet people. It was a good way to have quick turnover in the properties. And let's face it was pretty profitable. How did you? So that transition when you had those investment properties. Did you end up selling them? Do you still have them, or is it
Oh,
still profitable out there? Because I know in Toronto, there's a lot of developments and property managers, frankly, that don't want it happening in their buildings.
yeah, well, that's a shame, because as a realtor who has a lot of investment clients who want to buy. And when I have listings that are condos, the number one question I get asked is Airbnb allowed? So it's definitely on investors' radar, and so it should be. I mean, the pro forma of being able to rent out condos, even long term, that's really, to me, like a brilliant idea. And if you can find a city that still has deals like
Mm.
Calgary, because we are growing. We're growing quickly, but we're still, the condo market is doing much better, but you can still get a lot of good deals in Calgary. And when you do the pro forma on a two-bedroom condo in Calgary that you can pick up for $250,000, and you can now, because there's so little availability, and the Airbnb market and rental market is just like the real estate market. It's all about inventory. So when there's not a lot of it, you can really get a lot for your properties. Now,
Right.
if there's tons and tons of overdevelopment, like Toronto maybe is at the moment, it's like anything. You have more competition. It's just like when my listings here have, there's tons more listings now. So we have to work really, really hard to promote it. And that's what I would say to Airbnb investors and VRBO investors. You can't just pick up a property and expect it's just going to, nothing just makes you easy money in this life.
Right.
Passive
Yeah.
income is not passive. We all know that. So you have to be good at social media. You buy a property, and if you can be good at decorating it, doing a few upgrades to make it look Insta worthy, and use Instagram. And don't forget LinkedIn. LinkedIn is all executives. They have the money, they have the jobs. Oftentimes people forget about putting their properties on smart channels, like where there are executives already with disposable income.
Right. Just go to where your audience is, and and that's exactly it. Being able to showcase a property and make sure that it's something that, in this day and age, everyone wants to be able to share something. So having a little bit of staging maybe,
Yeah.
and focus on the shareability when it comes to those photos. So I was on your website, Ruth, and there was something that was mentioned, and it said every property listing is treated as a luxury property, no matter what the price point. So I really like that, and that resonated because sometimes I've seen listings, at least here in the GTA, where depending on the price point, you can really tell that there really wasn't much effort put in from anyone, really. But to hear that it doesn't matter what size of the property is, you give it the same sort of care. Can you speak a little bit on that? What does that
Well,
entail?
no, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, and a lot of realtors, Calgary is not a huge city with millions and millions and millions of people, right? It's not a huge city. So if you're a realtor who just solely focuses on luxury, I mean, I'm known a little bit as a luxury agent, but look, I can tell you right now, we have tons of people who are our clients who are treated the very same way. And it does sound like a cliche. Everyone says, oh, everything's a price point, because they don't want to miss the bread and butter properties, like the two, three, $400,000 properties. Like here in Calgary, the median price is, 600, 650, right? At the
Mm,
right now, at this moment, it's 623, I think. So, I think that goes back. Why I say that and why I continue to say that is because I've dealt with like a single mom selling her apartment or going through a divorce, and that is all the money someone has in the world. And since when is $200,000 a pittance of cents? I mean,
right. Yeah.
it's a huge investment. So if you're able to qualify and buy a $200,000, yeah, good for you. Like good for you. Like I come from absolutely nothing. So for me to now be able to buy a home and afford a home, anything I want at this point, um, you know, the luxury is to house yourself and your children. That's a luxury that everyone should be proud of. So on the buying side, if you're buying a $200,000 property, whether it's an investment or a place to live, like, wow, I'm impressed. I'm going to treat you with respect, and that's our philosophy at Rare Group. If you're buying a $2 million property, yes, you get the. Why shouldn't we all treat each other with uber respect? Now, when it comes to staging, we will pull up to a 200 Rare Group, and the word rare. We will pull up to a $200,000 property, and our car is stacked with Euro pillows and white
Hmm.
duvets, and we'll stage and give you that level of, and believe me, we get our clients to do some work too. It's really all about teamwork. with our clients because we want the most bang for their buck. We want the biggest return on their investment. And I will pull up to a $2-3 million listing the exact same way with my white duvets and my, we never stop. I think realtors forget, it's not just about having a nice bus bench and a bunch of minions running around and you don't even see the client. I mean,
Right.
for us, it's like that is our living. Our living is our effort, whether it's 200,000 or 200 million, whatever it is. That's your job as a realtor. It's not just to bang in a sign and take off. So I hope I've answered that question. Like
Oh,
every property is a luxury because whether I'm getting paid $5,000, and remember, there was a time where that amount saved my life. And I never
right.
forget that. I never forget that that saved our life, that $5,000. And so if I'm making 5, 15, 25, 50 or more, it all brings a little tear to my eye. It all makes us very excited and it all adds up at the end of the day. And that's how you run any business to be profitable.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there, and it really comes down to, the experience you're able to provide for the clients too, right? And it doesn't matter because that person that saved up for that $200,000 home versus the $2 million, they had the same amount of struggles, maybe even more, because there's less to go around. So I get super excited, especially when we're helping clients. Like I've had clients that are buying $1 million home, but they only need $100,000, and that gets me excited because they've clearly done a lot of things. Now, obviously, it's same as in real estate. Commissions are a little different there, but that shouldn't take away from the excitement you get when someone actually is able to close and make their dreams a reality. So that's fantastic to hear, Ruth. I know in Toronto, so when I lived in Toronto, every single day I took the subway. I would take the Bloor Danforth line. We come down to University, and I would always see advertisements. And back in September, there was a new
Oh, yeah.
campaign that launched. Alberta is calling. So I'm dying to see it. I haven't seen it in person yet. I'm going down on Thursday, going to take a look and see if I can find it. But maybe you can talk a little bit about this because it's been kind of controversial, but then it's also been getting people to ask those questions on, well, what is so magical, I guess, about Alberta besides the fact that you guys have the mountains in your backyard, but is there something more to it? Is there a reason people should leave the big
Oh,
cities?
well, first of all, kudos to that advertising campaign. Like, finally, to me, finally, someone gets it. I'm an aggressive marketer, and every home that I list, I try to find what is so special about it, and I also try to articulate it and give it a story. I sold a 4 or 5 parcels of land that's realtor had for quite a few years and not one bite. And when I took it over, I thought, what? I looked at it as the sun was coming down and all the little lights of the surrounding acreages went on.
Mm,
And I was like, and the stars were out. So I thought I'd call it, Twilight Meadows. I think my clients think I'm like, kind of nutty in the head. They're like, oh, okay. And I did all these signs and I just articulated it for really what I saw the vision of it being. And that is, I think, what that campaign is all about for Calgary. Someone's finally articulating it for what it is. Now, Calgary is no longer just the wild, wild west. We're kind of known as the wild, wild west, the stampede, which we absolutely love and embrace, and it's incredible. But this is the land of opportunity. It's always been Wild Wild West is synonymous with entrepreneurs and people starting from scratch. That's why I moved to Alberta like 25 years ago. I was an entrepreneur at heart, and I just thought that would be embraced out here, and it really is. And actually, that's why real estate is so awesome too. And I don't mean to, but I think being a realtor is the best job on the planet because you can be all want to be as an entrepreneur. And Calgary is much the same. It's you people here have still that small town western kind of
mm,
charm, uh, but it's becoming more of a cosmopolitan center. It's finally, getting up there. It's not just the mountains. And when you say just the mountains, I mean, God, it's the Rocky Mountains. The skiing here is bar none. If you've ever gone skiing in Lake Louise, there's no other mountain that can compete with it. And I've gone to many, many places all over the world skiing. That is number one hill by far. Banff, Canmore. I mean, talk about Canmore is absolutely a hot spot too in Canada. Finally, prices are cooling a little bit. Now, I got a call last week from a couple out of BC, doctors, who, I'll tell you why they're moving to Calgary. Also, the politics. You know,
Mm.
people, in BC, and I never talk about politics as a realtor because I don't really.
It's very polarizing, politics, and it can be a
Very
good conversation. It can be a very difficult conversation too.
right. And so I won't go too deep into that, but their reasoning for moving here to Calgary was, they really like the direction politics are going. They like they're both, in healthcare. They are frustrated living in Vancouver. They have a
Mm.
place in Whistler. I mean, that would be the ideal life. I was just in Vancouver this weekend, so I am a huge fan. It's so beautiful, drippy, beautiful there.
Love
Ocean,
Vancouver.
mountains,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah.
But, the median price in Vancouver is $1.6 million. So just think about yourself selling your place in Vancouver, which many of our clients have, and they get to come here and buy a beautiful property for a fraction of the price. They're now cash rich. They're no longer house poor. They can live and do all the same things because we've diversified our portfolio here. It's not just oil and gas. We're resource rich, but we're technology rich.
Right.
We're renewable energy rich. There's jobs here. Mass exodus from many provinces are coming here finally, and I think Calgary is finally getting the break it deserves because it's a absolutely great place to live. There are lake communities. I know it's not the forest with like it is out lush like Vancouver, but you could also avoid a tsunami. You know,
That's true. That's a good point too. Yeah, we could avoid the tsunami. Come to Calgary. We don't have tsunamis.
so that
Uh,
would be an aggressive campaign that I would put out there.
I
Totally
love it.
ridiculous, but you can have everything here and cash in. You can
Yeah,
actually live
yeah.
a beautiful
It's that
life.
quality of life. And,
Mm.
for someone like myself, I grew up in Toronto. I was downtown Toronto my entirety of my adult life. And I come from a large family. One of my brothers, years ago, he worked at Sunshine Village. And he's like, Dan,
Yes.
go take a road trip, go out west. And it was one of those things, like I've been to Vancouver, I've been up to Sea to Sky to Whistler many times, I love it, but there was just something about going to the city, and it was so vibrant, and then having the proximity of the mountains. And you spoke of the hospitality, people are just so wonderful there. And then, not even to get into the politics, but I think everyone can agree having lower taxes is fantastic.
Totally.
The land transfer tax, what is that? Well, you guys apparently don't have a land transfer. I think it's kind of like a stamp tax or something similar to that. And then, lower taxes when it comes to the GST or PST there.
Right. No,
So,
no HST. Yeah.
yeah, which is fantastic. And the price per square foot, when we look at the average in Toronto, and you're pushing $1,200 a square foot.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
what's the average right now, Ruth, in Calgary? Let's say Calgary proper, for price per square foot on a.
Well, if you're a really good realtor, you never talk about price per square feet.
Mm.
You
Luckily, I'm not a realtor. Otherwise, I probably would have shot myself in the foot talking price per square foot right now. So,
you would have for many other reasons than that. But um, the thing is you really it's hard to say. An average home, say at $500,000, 600,000, probably has a price per square foot of between, depending on finishings and upgrades and all of that,
right,
right?
yeah, you got to take that into consideration.
And age of home. So I hate to talk about price per square foot, but it's not 1,200, but it's probably more like 400 is an
Right.
average maybe price per square foot. So a third of the cost of
And
living.
when anyone's hearing that, that's my cohort or younger too, and they hold on a second, because everything here they try to work out. Okay, well, yeah, what does this work out to as far as square footage or whatnot? When you hear 400 as an average, and obviously you're right with anything, it depends on finishes and location and everything else, but that's a lot more reasonable.
Yeah,
than what we're finding in this province. So
totally.
what's and then I know as well, like I've invested in Calgary. I'm in Southeast, but maybe you can talk to me about what are you noticing as far as year over year with appreciation, and what's the inventory? You mentioned there's a little bit more inventory now, but is it more of a balanced market, or what is Calgary right now?
Calgary is a balance. It's considered a balanced market, but again, like any city in real estate, it's just edging towards. I think it's 48% listing absorption. So that means, out of 100 homes, 48 of them are getting sold in Calgary right now. So that's just inching. It's a balanced market. But then you go to different neighborhoods, and
Hmm.
it might very well be a seller's neighborhood in one particular, like a hotter neighborhood, and one that is not so hot could be definitely a buyer's. And also, it depends on the street, and there's so much intricacies that go into real estate. And that's why, when you're listening to the news, you have to be really careful, because it's not just about averages. And so,
Right.
jot it
Yeah.
down. Make sure you work with a really good buyer's agent who understands all of these intricacies and shares with you all the data, because it does come down to the numbers over and over and over. You can't just be a pretty face and have a nice bus bench. You really have to understand the numbers and the neighborhoods and year over year. So if I'm looking at benchmark, like sales in Calgary year over year, the benchmark trend, our benchmark is up by 19%. We are 19%
Wow.
more than in 2021. I mean, so even though the media is talking doom and gloom and interest rates, et cetera, which I think
Mm.
there was a slight ease in interest rates this week, but right, I would ask you that question.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, a little bit on the bond yields have
Right.
definitely factored in, so we're starting to see a little bit of a drop. So
Yeah, which
good
would mean
news.
everyone right now who has a rate that is held should just give their broker, a bank, a little call and say, is there a way to recalculate that and hold it for 90 days, right? Is that what you should do?
Yeah, you got it. So a lot of lenders will do what's called a float down, so they can float that rate down. I just posted about this on TikTok, and I had some questions on it. So, yeah, float downs will allow you to get a lower rate, but more importantly, in this type of market, everyone's qualifying on whatever the rate you have plus 2%. So theoretically, if today's rate is lower than what you had on your pre-approval, go for a new pre-approval, because it's going to increase your affordability. If you're kind of like on the line, or you couldn't quite get what you were looking for, just go back, yeah, to your banker or broker and talk to them, and they'll
That's
rerun those
really good to
numbers.
know. That's good. Yeah, I love to hear that. Any little gains that people can make.
Right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
important there. Yeah. So, I mean, the you mentioned that with this whole move, this shift to go out west, we've helped with my brokerage quite a few people take the plunge in either investing or just simply picking up and moving. And I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not sure where we're going to go, but we may make our way out that way.
Oh, that's
But
good to know.
yeah, yeah. So it'll be
I know
exciting.
a realtor you could work with.
Perfect. I know a broker you can work with. But the we were just in Canmore actually a few weeks ago, and we were there right before the snow hit, and it was absolutely beautiful. Even with the snow, it's beautiful. But
Totally.
yeah, we lucked out with some really good weather. So speaking of sort of climate and everything, the Economic Intelligence Unit had named Calgary the most livable city in North America, which was pretty fantastic, and the top three of livable cities in the entire world. So this has got to be a pretty good boost for anyone considering moving to Calgary too. Is it's not just people that live there that think it's great. It's pretty much a global consensus at this
Yeah.
point.
Calgary really is, you're right, it's climbing the charts in so many ways. And again, affordability coupled with such great ratings all over the world. I think yeah, it's good. I mean, we definitely are busy and busy with buyers coming in from other provinces. We definitely notice a lot more uptick on that side of things. Yeah, the weather here, I think if last week was one of the coldest places, but you can have all four seasons like most Canadian cities, I
Yeah.
guess, day. I
Yeah.
mean, the weather is a big topic for all Canadians. We talk about it all the
Doesn't
time.
matter where you are. West Coast, East Coast. None of it. You're talking weather. I mean, it's at least you have the Chinooks, right? So
Beautiful
you get that.
Chinooks. You can go skiing and it's plus 17 on a December day. I mean, it's,
Crazy.
it's amazing. Yeah, there's tons of beauty here, natural beauty, great restaurants too, finally, like
Mm,
world-class restaurants. So, it's nice because definitely when you see your city, through COVID and suffering through a lot of changes, and we used to be a boom or gloom town because boomer doom because of oil and gas being our only
mm.
industry, and having seen also tons of corporate head offices have moved here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Talk
The
about that.
diversification now, like you mentioned, like the tech sector has just blown up, and it's been
Totally.
fantastic because, I mean, it's one thing to move there, but if you don't have a job, well, maybe that wasn't the best move. But yeah,
Amazon,
Calgary's
tons of jobs here.
right, and that's fantastic because people can relocate, have a lower cost of living, have a better quality of life, and still have that job. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna get you to put your crystal ball,
Oh gosh.
get that out, and maybe we could talk a little bit about what you think is going to happen. I won't hold you to it. Maybe we'll have you back for another one, but let's talk maybe what's going on, what you think is going to happen in the new year, because we're starting to finish off 2022. But what's in store for us?
Well, I definitely think it's going to be a little bit of a tough slew here for the next, 2 to 6 months. Just, I don't think inflation is quite over and interest rates rising is quite over. I think that the Bank of Canada is going to continue kind of squashing our dreams for a little while, and you could probably speak to that better than I can. But what that means in real estate is, if you're in the market to buy, don't wait. Don't think things are going to get better. Do it as soon as possible. But I also think with Calgary's stability, if I had a crystal ball, I think that we are going to see once again a very busy spring. I think that you're going to be in a good position to sell as a seller, but it's all relative. Remember, a lot of sellers are kind of pissed off right now because they're not getting or yielding those same bidding wars and multiple offers, and they're not getting full list price quite often, and they're really they're hanging on to the glory days that were the last 6 months. So it's really tough, and the tougher conversation is with clients who do foresee things becoming better or see that things are stable, so they're hanging on for that. And I don't mind that as long as I get to keep the listing agreement for
Mm,
to ride through that, because oftentimes you ride that through, and even though you tell your listing clients that I have no crystal ball. That may or may not happen. I hope that we all can make that happen, as long as they don't, fire you and hire someone else and suddenly the market turns, which is, a real estate agent's nightmare. And clients do that, or not very often with me, but it's happened. So if I really don't talk about the future a lot because it's just such a 50-50 crapshoot. But for me, if I were buying, I'd do it now because I think
hmm.
rates are going to continue to climb. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong there in your crystal ball, but then I do feel it's all relative. You're as a buyer, you're not competing. You're able to get a home much more affordably than you could when the interest rates were super low. You could actually you would actually overpay for a home because
Right.
everyone
Yeah.
was overpaying. So you'd pay 40, 50,000 over list to get a home. Now you might be able to get 10, 20,000 under list or more depending on the type of property, but you're pissed off because rates are higher. So it's
Yeah.
all relative, and I think everyone has to remember that real estate is a long game. If you're turning around and selling in a couple of weeks, then it matters. If you're holding on for 5 to 10 years, you need to live in a house, you need to be happy, you need to live your life, and it is what it is. Another saying we hate as realtors.
It is what it is. Well, it's true when clients have you. pull out that crystal ball and then hold you accountable because something completely outside of your control happened, it can become a little frustrating because it's unfortunately, that's the market kind of dictating where things are going to go. But it's nice to hear sort of your take on where things might go. As far as interest rates, yeah, we're probably in for a few other hikes. I mean, the inflationary numbers are a little bit better, but they're not really where we need them to be. So we can expect rates to kind of continue to do that upward trend. The more pressing thing I would say for anyone that's kind of on the fence on whether or not they should buy is looking at the affordability and what happens with the stress test. If there are additional rules or restrictions that are put into place that also reduce the affordability, because if that happens, then it could effectively price you out of a home that you could have purchased, but you were just kind of waiting to see if things changed. And it's so difficult, Ruth, when some people want to time the top and they want to, time the bottom, and it's really pretty much impossible to do either. So I think that's good advice
for them, right? You don't want to be the person that says, buy now, buy now. I mean, I do say before Christmas, there's only 6 weeks left before the end of the year. And here's the catch-22, right? If you want to list your home right now, I think it's a great idea because there's not a lot of inventory and there are a lot of buyers out there who really want to get the hop on buying before the rates go down. But, in turn, you also have to find a place to live and there's not a lot of inventory. So
right.
Everything in real estate, all I say to my clients is, it's a mirror image. If you're selling low, you're probably going to be able to get a good deal when you buy. If you're
It's true.
selling high, well, unless you're downsizing, so sell high when you're downsizing and sell low when you're upsizing. But you're still, again, there's a catch-22 to everything. So it's all about your own time in life, your own finances, the deposit you've saved, what your future looks like. That's just it's hard to predict.
It's so hard to predict. And I don't know, you're still going. No, I got you. You're still alive. The one other thing I would say is I did a little exercise a few weeks ago, and we compared sort of in January earlier this year the average cost of a home just outside of the city I'm in. And what would it look like if we were to purchase a comparable house, footprint-wise and community? So we found out that even with the higher interest rates and the higher interest rates, you're actually paying less for that property. You have a lower down payment that you have to save for, so lower mortgage. And even though the interest rate's higher on a comparable property, which was, I think the average is just over $1 million on a single family detached just in Guelph, which is just outside of Kitchener-Waterloo, that translated to about a $900 savings if you were to just pull the trigger today, as opposed to say, rates were really low, I should have done it back then. So there's definitely something to be said there, Ruth. But I'd love to have you back on this podcast. I think you've got a wealth of information, and as we start to kind of help more clients with their move out west, it'd be great to lean on you with some more of your insight and opinion. So I really appreciate you joining me today.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I know that my team and I were always excited. We're always here to help people move from outside of the province to Calgary. And we even pick you up at the airport and tour you around.
So, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So guys, if you guys want to get in contact with Ruth and her team over at the Rare Group, I'm going to put the contact information below, and then feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks. It was a pleasure talking to you, Ruth.
You as well. Thanks.